I'm not comfortable with the idea of people being ordered to get vaccinated by the government. I may be rendered more comfortable about it by you. And let me explain briefly why. I stress again, I've got absolutely no medical qualifications, and I turn to people who do whenever I'm in need of guidance or counsel. But it seems to me that the arguments about other diseases, other conditions, are not quite as effective as some of their proponents think they are. So if you think about polio or malaria, you're talking about eradication. So I can see why the fact that vaccines will not eradicate coronavirus, even if everybody got vaccinated, I still, for the record, think that everybody should get vaccinated. And if I was a boss, I'd certainly be looking pretty seriously at some of the tactics adopted by IKEA and the NHS. But I don't know, and I could be wrong, I don't know that it's fair to see it in the same light as smallpox or polio, because this will not achieve eradication. The key benefit of the vaccine is the reduction in the severity of the infection if you get it. So I suppose it's arguable, isn't it? The key benefit is the reduction in the likelihood of you getting it, but I think the fact that people can still get it when they're vaccinated has possibly caused more confusion than almost anything else in this whole sorry saga. The key benefit of the vaccine, and anyone else whose family had it over Christmas will know this, the key benefit is that it minimises the likelihood of very severe infection. It's why the case rate rocketing under Omicron, partly because Omicron is milder, but also largely because of the vaccination programme, it's why the case rate does not get reflected by the hospitalisation rate or the death rate on anything like the scale that we have seen in previous waves. So I guess my position that may well fall apart under scrutiny is that you should be free to refuse this vaccine. But in that case, I'm also free to tell you to sling your hook from the workplace. Does that work? Does that end up pleasing nobody as opposed to everybody? So at this point in proceedings, at this point in the conversation, and partly because of that absence of actual eradication, the problem is, am I now bending over to accommodate your Uncle Keith's Facebook page? Because, social media and to an extent speech radio get slightly overwhelmed sometimes by very loud ignorance. And maybe by a process of osmosis, that loud ignorance even seeps into the most carefully curated consciences or consciousnesses. I don't know. I just find the idea, what would you do? Here's part of my problem. What would you do with someone who literally refused? So by all means, tell them they can't work for you anymore. But you can't, strap them down? What are you going to do? Bring in the army? That, to me, it's a means and end argument, isn't it? Would the end justify the means? And because there's no eradication on the horizon, and I am just one punter thinking out loud on this, so I reserve the right to completely abandon anything that I put forward to you during this pontification. But because you are not going to achieve eradication, as you have with polio and smallpox among the population, any argument for actually, and I don't think there is any prospect of compulsory vaccination on the horizon for what it's worth, but I think it's an important part of this mental framework that I'm building before you ring in and either join the dots of it or blow it to smithereens. I think that it would be utterly unreasonable to impose this on people, but I don't think it's unreasonable to insist, as with, for example, hepatitis B in hospitals and health services, I don't think it's unreasonable for employers to have a policy on this. I just don't.